Well, the final print edition of BRW magazine has listed the 50 most innovative companies in Australia. One of those companies was the media agency Starcom Mediavest Group. And joining us during a quick trip to Australia is Ian Jacob, President of Dynamic Markets, who's expanded the company's global growth throughout Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, and Ian, a nice accolade during your quick trip here.
Thank you very much.
You must be enjoying that very much.
Yes, it is. I mean, we've really pushed on innovation over the last few years, so it's great to be recognised.
In what ways? What does innovation mean for Starcom Mediavest?
Well, you know, there's so much you can do these days, and in the tech areas, the tech development areas, and the new products we're bringing to our clients, we're continually reinventing.
And I think if they pointed out a return on investment tool you used, is that something you use globally, or is it an Australian sort of specialty?
We use it globally. We're expanding it around the world. We've brought it into Australia. And what it does is really answers the marketeer's questions, you know, how do all my channels join up to get me a return on for the business?
Now, you work all over the world, many markets, dynamic markets. Does that mean Australia is a dynamic market?
Of course.
How globally important are we?
Look, it's very important. We've clustered together all the markets that are developed and now have to go through a transformation, which is largely a digital transformation, and Australia is one of those. So I oversee Australia, Europe and Canada.
What about the growth outlook for this part of the world? How do you think it's looking, and particularly into next year? Because this is our big question always.
Of course, yeah. You know, it's been a tough couple of years for everybody. Australia's been, I think, better than many because it hasn't had the recession that much of the other parts of the world have. The real growth, the headline growth, will be relatively low in media, but actually in digital, as you well know, it's expanding fast and accelerating fast, and that's where our business is growing.
And that's how's our digital expanding versus other markets, for
You
example?
know what? You're in a very high growth phase. I see, you know, mobile. If you look at the smartphone penetration and the way that mobile is going to develop, it's going to grow enormously next year in Australia. Video. And the use of video is going to grow enormously. So I think there's a good prognosis for this market.
Are we still coming off a very low base, though, or am I underselling us? Are we doing all right?
Well, I think you're coming off a base which you can build on. And I think in the next 2 years, you're going to see real change, real change here.
Is there confidence about marketers? I mean, everybody wants to know how much they're going to be spending. Is there some real confidence, you know, in the sort of years?
Do you know, I think confidence is coming back. I'm seeing companies more willing to innovate. In the last couple of years, they've been looking to cut costs, frankly. I think they're now looking at new models. You know, how do we get better ROI? How do we use the digital environment to better address our audiences? And then if you look at Australia, I mean, it's extraordinary, the level of social media usage in this market, the level of smartphone usage in this market. You know, it's a market ready for a revolution, I would say.
I just wonder what you talk about when you come for these trips to Australia, and you've obviously got colleagues here. When you're visiting, what's the basis of the discussions right now here?
Well, I want to hear, first of all, what our clients want and need. You know, what are their concerns? What are they looking to achieve in the marketplace? And then I want to make sure that we're transferring learnings internally around the world. So you mentioned it, James, you know, that certain approaches and techniques that we're using in Australia, so we're accelerating growth here. So that's what I want to.
And is it a global business? I mean, do you have the same clients in lots of companies? Yeah. Is that what it's all about these days?
No, typically a good market would be 50% local, 50% global business. That's how I'd see a good, strong office. We do work a lot with global clients because they are, just like us, looking to how they join the world better, in how they move faster, how they become more agile. So we do work with a lot of global companies.
Yes, we were just talking about the Mail Online starting up here, and you often hear about, look, the future of this is global, that's global, but then you again also hear about, look, local is very important, so it's a mix of both, and personalisation as well comes into it. So it's sometimes confusing, think of which one can be right, or they're not mutually exclusive.
Well, ultimately, you know, media, a bit like retail, is a highly localised business, as you know. But many of the approaches and many of the things that clients want to achieve are global. So you can actually be strong local and strong global. It's not an either-or game anymore.
Yes.
Many mustn't do that so well, though, I suppose. Only the best do that well.
The best, but I think they've got a lot better than they used to be. You know, the idea that you could just export a marketing program into some local market is long since dead. I mean, what our global clients are trying to make sure is that they get the insights from the local markets very quickly fed up to the globe, to the global office, so they can understand how they need to behave in those local markets. They've shortened the distance, if you will, between local market and head office. It's been a big push.
I've heard you talking about brands before. I mean, you're not just buying spots for people anymore, are you? You're giving advice and looking at the way they sell themselves. How's the relationship between a brand and its customers changed over the years, and how many people are getting it right here?
Yeah. Well, I think it's fundamentally changed, particularly with the new generation. Anybody under 40 actually has different expectations, I would say, from what they want from a brand owner. So where a brand could have been on broadcast and giving out its messages to a happy audience, these days we know that world has changed. You've got to interact with your audience, you've got to listen, you've got to respond, and that is a totally new marketing model for a lot of companies. People are doing it well, but there's a lot to learn.
It's easy to say, isn't it? And as soon as you have a bad brand experience, you think, oh, gee, this company, it turns you off them, doesn't it?
Well, we describe brands as having to be always on. You're going to get bad experiences from brands, you just are. And actually, you will be judged on how well you handle that experience as a brand. And that's about listening and responding.
Yeah, Yahoo is one of the big media brands. I don't know if you just heard it, James and I chatting about Katie Couric. Some analysts saying, look, this is the final mark, this is the end of the old media dominance. It's a signal. Others had different comments. But do you see movements like that as signalling something bigger in terms of the bigger picture about media? Or
I've got a saying, old media never die. People said cinema was going to die, I seem to remember, and people said radio was going to die. They don't, they evolve, they regenerate. You get different leaders of the pack at different times. I think Yahoo's a powerful property. They've got to get their transformation into mobile to work for them. I think that's going to be their direction. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's interesting to hear. I wanted to get your thoughts on that sort of transition of old media, if you like, to new media. You see it in different stages around the world, I guess. Totally. You say old media doesn't die, but transforms a bit. So you think the big news brands that have been in print will sort of find a level where they'll continue to sort of be profitable and exist?
I would say the smart ones will. I think there's also nobody can be arrogant of their position. If you look at TV in this market, it's a very strong and powerful medium. I think the TV model will start to transform. I know Netflix is small here, but over-the-top internet-served TV will be disruptive for the TV business, much in the way that the internet has been disruptive for the press business.
Who's getting it right in terms of the old media, do you think? In
terms of the old media?
Yeah, the sort of newspaper publishers, you think, that have adapted better than others?
The newspapers have struggled to switch from that old print model. The print model was very cost-effective and it worked. And they struggle to move away from that, especially the local titles, as you know. I think TV has done well, actually. It's been very robust in Australia, and when you look at how it's engaged with the social networks, if you look at Twitter, 90% of TV conversations are on Twitter, so they're now working out how to make that work for them. So I think they've been smart.
I was just wondering, is that old media is a part of the problem that you guys can get their audiences now cheaper online than the way you used to get it, paying a premium, if you like, for newspapers.
Dollars to cents.
Yeah.
Dollars to cents. Yeah, and that's still an issue.
I'm not suggesting you're the problem, but...
Thank you so much. No, that is an issue, and new commercial models, I'm sure will emerge. The mobile makes that even tougher. I think if you view modern technology through an old lens, you have that problem. So if you take it for the power that it can be, so mobile will, for example, change the way people behave at retail. I mean, it'll be fundamental, the change it makes to consumer behaviour. So if you treat mobile as just another advertising medium, you're going to lose money.
Of course, it feels like we're only just at the start of it, of course. Thank you very much, Ian Jacob, for coming on the show today. We appreciate that very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
From Starcom Mediavest Group, on a quick visit to Australia. We'll take a quick break here on Mediaweek, and coming up, an Australian production company wins an Emmy this week. We'll find out who won and what program it was for. Stick with us.